Welcome back to Tawana Talks, where I believe leadership is a dance everyone's invited to, even you with two left feet. Each week is a new track where we are chatting about the moves you make to lead yourself and others to success. So lace up those dancing shoes and let's dive into creating those supportive steps together. Ready to move with purpose? Let's hit the dance floor. All right. Thank you for tuning in to Tawana Talks. I am Tawana, and I am the founder and CEO for TL Collaborative Coaching and Consulting, where my focus is on nurturing leaders for lasting success. And this podcast is where we actually explore the essence of just that through impactful stories with leaders. So I am excited to introduce my guest today, who is a leader. Wait till you hear all of these great things and some of the things I did not know. So I am excited. So I have Shaundrika Rutherford, and she was born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. You cannot tell by her accent or her slang. She is a proud child of God, a mother of three beautiful boys: Isaac, age 15, Preston, 10, and August, who is 7. She is also an entrepreneur and an owner of, get this, 5 businesses specializing in the private transportation sector and transitional housing for individuals in recovery from substance abuse and alcohol. She serves proudly for her church, and she is an advocate for the voiceless in her community, as well as a mentor to inmates serving within the prison systems. And if that is not enough, she just finished writing her memoir, Sufficient Grace. It is a total honor and a pleasure, Shaundrika, and I'm so glad that you said yes when I asked you to be a guest on the podcast. First of all, I just want to know, like, why me? Why did you say yes?
My gosh, Tawana, because you're amazing.
Stop it.
Every time I see you, I'm always so happy to see you. I can't tell you how much that you pour into me, even if it's just a simple hug or a simple good morning. And so I'm always on board for anything that you have. I will always show up and support you because you do the same for me. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for that encouragement. Sometimes you don't know what your impact has on others, even when you're just, obviously just being yourself. So I appreciate that. And all of the work that you have, that I've just communicated in your bio, shows that you just show up as yourself. And I've seen nothing different. And so I am just really excited to get into this conversation and hearing about like these great things. One of the purposes of the podcast is so that people can see themselves in those who they hear, if they're listening on the podcast, or they see, and not so much of seeing themselves on what they physically see, but through the stories and through the lives that were impacted, or how that person who's the guest life has been impacted or transitioned through certain things. And so I am so curious about hearing about your story and like why you chose the spaces that you currently are passionate about and operating. But first, I want to start by saying I remember our conversation, and I think it was 2 years ago, when you were talking about starting the transitional houses, and you were like about to open up your first one, and you were scared. I remember you saying like you were scared, and that goes to what you said in the pre-session of your motto coining, like, go ahead, go afraid. You truly embodied that. Like, you just did the thing, and now you have like so many, and now you're just really doing the thing. And so I don't even know the question, like why that space. And I want you to talk about that, but I also want you to talk about that feeling, that what you had and what gave you that drive and that tenacity to just go afraid. Like, tell us.
Okay, so I guess where Go Afraid came from is just um I always relate to the Bible verse of God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of a sound mind. And so fear is always going to be present whenever God has called you to do something because that is the work of the enemy. And so because the presence of fear is always going to be with you, and I know that because his word says he doesn't give us that spirit, it's always going to be there. So, in order to do what God has called you to do, you have to go afraid. And I find that once I actually get into it, all of the things that's been in my mind of what's going to go wrong, what can possibly happen, all of those strategies that I feel the enemy use against you, because he's crafty and he's very individualized in the way that he attacks. And so for me, he creates these sabotage ideas of this is going to fail, that's going to fail, you're going to be laughed at, you're going to be mocked, la da da da. And those ideas will play in my head. And if I'm not careful, I will start to believe those and then say, oh, I'm not going to do it because I don't want this to happen. So while the memories, while the flashbacks, while the ideas are playing in my head, I'm like, I'm just going to go. And sometimes I'm shaking in my boots. Sometimes I'm nervous and I'm tapping underneath the table when I'm sitting across from people I'm getting ready to partner with. That fear does not leave. And unfortunately, it stays with me. Sometimes I'm like a duck on the surface. I look calm on the outside, but I am paddling underwater. And
Mhm.
so I have to go afraid. I have to feel the feeling, try and silence it as much as I can. And once I get into it, I start to realize that the fear slowly dissipates. And all the things that I thought was going to happen never actually happens.
Yeah. I love that. I love the fact of just being, first of all, thank you for just being transparent and authentic in sharing that, that sometimes you gotta fake it for a second. Like the
Yes.
smile underneath, I'm like trembling.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
and I think that too, like how much of that, you being afraid, but once you get there, you're showing up, lends itself to what you're passionate for. How much
Mhm.
of that is that? Because it's a
Mhm.
passion. That's one part that I want to ask.
Mhm.
But then that other part is like, why the work did you do? What fueled that passion?
So originally, I was a social worker, peer support for at-risk youth. And it was my job to follow the youth after being removed from the home. And so I would work with them for 3 to 4 years, get them successful to go off to college. And then at 17, they would be reunified with their parents. Unfortunately, the system doesn't do anything to develop the parenting skills for when the children return home. So they return in that same environment that they left 4 or 5 years later. And unfortunately, the parents are not stabilized to parent this child. And so I've seen a lot of failed um, situations to where I've lost a few to gang violence, a few to suicide, a few to prostitution. And so me being frustrated with I'm on the wrong side of this. I need to be helping the parents because all of the success that I've worked with this child, it falls by the wayside. And so I left that field completely and stepped into entrepreneurship. I knew I wanted to work with adults. I just wasn't sure at the time. And so one Sunday, I'm walking into Elevation Church, University campus, got to shout them
See?
out. And God says, he says to me, and I can hear it so loud. He says, I have souls connected to this project. And I'm like, what project, God? Like, what are you talking about? I have no idea. So I'm in church and I'm listening to the message and I'm seeing these visuals that's kind of popping into my mind. I'm kind of daydreaming, but I can see me in like a house, but having like group sessions with people. And so I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this is what God is showing me. So started talking to another friend who opened up a group home for children. And I said, I want to do one for adults, but I wasn't exactly sure. And so it was my mother-in-law who has about 35 years of recovery. She was talking about how there's not enough sober living houses for individuals coming out of recovery, and how it's easily managed, but you still have a huge impact. So I started doing a lot of research for that. And I came across Oxford houses and I spoke with Oxford House and I was explaining my vision to them. And they said, oh, your vision is too big for us. You want a house that has like 15 to 20 people. Our max is generally 6 to 8 people. So I'm going to refer you to Vanderburg House, and they are located in Massachusetts, and they have over 30 houses across the northern hemisphere. And so I started the application process, and I can say it did not go as I had originally planned, but I am tenacious. I am ambitious. I will not take no for an answer, especially when I know in my heart that God has called me to do this work. So I got in touch with Vanderburg House, and I told them my vision, and they were so excited to hear that, to partner with me, to teach me how to open houses. And here we are, going on 2.5 years later. And I can share a little more about the process and how that looked as we go through our interview.
That's phenomenal. What I heard in there on top of go afraid is go frustrated, right? Like
Yes.
your passion will be fueled by frustration, and let your frustration be bigger than your fear. Like it's
Mhm,
gonna be there. Your fear is gonna be there.
mhm,
And what you do with that fear is you fuel it
mhm,
with your passion, not fuel the feel, you fuel the whatever you're gonna do with your passion through frustration. When something is not, let the problem, does the problem bother you more than the fear bothers you,
mhm.
right? And
Exactly.
and just thinking about like uh Darius Daniels had a sermon about divine agitation.
Ooh, I
He
know that well.
actually preached it at Elevation, and he talked about how God will give you agitation that some people may not be bothered with because the God didn't give them that calling, but it would be something that will keep showing up for you. And
Mhm.
and when you have that divine agitation, that means that you have a calling to speak to that issue or that concern. But like you said,
Absolutely.
being in fear, it's never, and I just did a talk on like it's not always fun when you are growing into something or you're changing
Mhm,
into something. Like think about it, like when we were like in school, when you had to
mhm.
finish eighth grade and go to ninth grade, you may have been a little excited, but you was also scared. Like, who's gonna be there?
Exactly.
When I had the right clothes, my hair gonna look right? Is the people gonna be there? My nose stuff, all this stuff. Every year my son would have, he would develop anxiety for the next year, since from first grade through about fifth grade,
Mhm,
the day before school, he would get these canker sores. He would be so
mm.
stressed out. And I'm like, what is the issue? And his problem was always, I don't know if I'm going to know this stuff. And I would always have to
Right.
calm him by, you're not supposed to know it. That's why you
Right.
like you are fearful of something that you are setting up yourself in your mind of thinking, what if I don't know
Exactly.
the thing? You don't know
Mhm,
the thing, but you know
mhm.
what you know and you have what you need. So go afraid.
Absolutely.
And
So
I
great.
just I feel like because the passion was there and the divine agitation was there, then something was already put in you to
Mhm,
speak to that. So you didn't know until you got in the space. Like you don't know if
mhm.
you can swim until you get in the water. You ain't gonna be out here
Absolutely.
get in the water like, oh shoot, I
Absolutely.
can swim. So I just
Mhm.
really, really love that. And so what I would like to just kind of hear more about is like in that space that you may be in situations where you're fearful and you're second guessing and all of the things, but you've had such great success with in 2.5 years. What were some of the things that you would say were very supportive for you that helped you to do the thing? Like what would you feel like your support measures were? Who were your support measures? What did that look like for you?
So when I started this, it all started on prayer.
Mm,
I had no money at the time. All I had was the vision and the promise that I felt God gave me. And so, with that vision and that promise, I started praying, like, God, I don't have the money for this. I don't know where it's going to come from. I was feeling very fearful because of the uncertainty. So I had no idea where this was going to go, as well as I felt very inadequate. And I feel like with any, and I refer back to the Bible a lot because I feel like I relate to some of the individuals in the Bible. Well, every time God called someone to do something for him, they always felt like they were inadequate. Especially with Moses, he felt like, oh, I can't speak well, or David, I'm too young, Jonah, I'm too afraid. And so
mhm,
there was always something where you would feel inadequate with. And so for me, I don't have a degree in business. My degree is in psychology. So I had no idea on how to run business or anything. And so I felt like I was inadequate in that area. And so I realized that with my discernment, I started seeing people in the community that I felt led to speak to. Like, hey, can I talk to you? What do you think about this? Or let me pick your brain here. And so that's kind of how I developed the team. So starting on no money. So I had a realtor that I was going to work with. And unfortunately, she didn't think this was going to go anywhere. So she backed out of it. And so I'm like, well, I don't know what to do or where to go. And one day I got a cold call from another realtor, and he was just calling to tell me how much money I had in my home, how much money of equity I had in my home. And so he asked if I was interested in buying a house or selling mine. I said no, but I am looking to buy houses, but I don't really know what to do or how to start this process. And so he says, well, let me meet with you. And so I met with him, and one of the common grounds with all of the individuals that I'll speak about is our love for Christ. And so we started talking about that, and I started feeling like, oh, this is the person that might have been sent to me because he's speaking the language that I recognize. And so he said, well, you have about 150,000 in your home of equity. You can do a cash out refinance. So speaking to the husband at the time, he's like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So I reached out to Vanderburg House, fill out the application. They did not contact me back. And so over the course of a month, I was reaching out, sending emails. No one's responding. And so I started to get a little discouraged, like, well, God, maybe this isn't it, or maybe this isn't the avenue that you want me to go to. And so suddenly I kind of got this feeling of I should research the CEO of this enterprise. So I researched him, found all the articles, presentations that he did. On the last page of his presentation was his cell phone number. I texted him. I
You did say
texted
you were
him.
tenacious, right?
Yes, I texted him and saw that he read the text message but never responded. And I'm like, oh no, we're not gonna do that. So I called him
Oh my God. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love
and
it.
left a message. And so the next morning he sends me a text. I received your text. I heard your message. Can I give you a call in a few hours? So he called me. And this is after I've sent emails as well, because he had his email address. And so he called me and he said, I'm so happy you reached out to me. I'm so happy that you were persistent. But the thing that led me to you was your scripture in your email,
Mm.
which is to be kind to others. And so he said, that's one of my most favorite scriptures. So we started talking about that. And he was like, hey, come on up here. We can book the flight for you. Come up here. Let's meet us. Tour some of the houses that we have. And within a matter of 3 days from that conversation, I was already in Boston, Massachusetts, meeting with the CEO and his fiance at the time, touring some of the houses, fell in love with it, and we partnered. And that was February of 2021. And June of 2021 was my first house I opened.
Wow.
Yeah.
That like
I'm
that's
sorry,
amazing because
2022. Forgive
2022,
me,
yeah.
2022. Yes.
That is wow. I'm just thinking because I did it might be in this season, I'm not really sure, but it was allowing your blindness to fuel your boldness.
Mm,
And what that was talking about was the blindness. I thought about how children, they don't know about the restrictions and like you don't what the do's and the don'ts until you
mhm,
start living life. And so
mhm,
because they don't know the do and don'ts, they are pretty
mhm.
bold. They will do what
Right.
like my daughter wrote her own note about her dietary restrictions of what she wanted because she had no idea that kids don't write notes, right? She just did it.
Exactly.
She was bold. She went after what she wanted and she knew what she wanted. And I think that that speaks to that, like, I'm not going to allow any restrictions about you don't contact a COO, you don't text, you don't do the things. Like, he put his number there. So
Exactly.
somebody's supposed to call. And I saw like they had put something on, it was a minister that spoke, and he was like, if you have a problem with me, text me. But if you don't have my number, then you don't have a problem with me.
Ooh,
Right.
I like
And I
that.
think about that, like, I have a situation. Oh, and I have your number. So I do have this problem and I can contact you. And so it's just letting your boldness be the few over your restrictions. I think
Mhm.
that, and look where it led you. Right.
Exactly.
Right. Oh my God, that is amazing. And to think about, like where you are now, like you share some more of your personal story. Like this is Shaundrika
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
but share like what led you to even wanting. I know you shared some of it, like you got your vision and you just felt like, dealing with children, but is there anything like in you that you can sit back and kind of glean and think like, oh, this was something that kind of has always been in here. Why am I so put to, the people that you lead? Like you work with, individuals who are just as involved. You're working with, individuals who have substance abuse. I know you just did a talk um to women, like in the outside of the aspect that you're a woman yourself, like what gives you that passion that's like, I got to show up in these spaces for these people.
So I love people in general. I'm always a talkative person. In fact, as a kid, I got most talkative on my report card
Now we get paid
all
for it.
the way through elementary school. So I love talking to people. I love getting to know people. I love picking people's brains. I love people, and I also love giving and love serving people. I'm someone that will take my shirt off and give it to my brother or my sister. And so I just have a love for people, and I always have. And so I think people that when they meet me, I have some that were afraid of how open and genuine and giving that I am. And so when I kind of share my story, and I'll share a little bit. I didn't have the best childhood. I was raised by grandparents. My parents had me when they were 16 years old, so they weren't ready to be a mother at that age or be a father at that age. So I was raised by my grandmother. But my grandmother, she was a very sweet lady. Unfortunately, she had an addiction to alcohol. And so at the time, I didn't realize how prevalent alcohol and mental health was in my family until as an adult, I started looking back over. And so, unfortunately, my grandmother was very abusive when she was intoxicated. And so, as an adult, I had to deal with a lot of childhood trauma. In addition to that, a family friend molested and raped me my whole kindergarten year. And so I learned how to hide behind that smile and pretend that everything was fine when I was dying on the inside. And so I was so fearful of telling them because we were poor. We used to go to our neighbors to fill up milk jugs with water because our water was off, our electricity was off. My grandfather at the time also was an alcoholic, and so he would either drink or gamble all of his paycheck. And so there was no money to come into the house.
Mm.
And this family friend, they were somewhat wealthy, and so they would help our family with finances. And unfortunately, my family trusted them to make sure I got on and off of the school bus. And that was when it occurred every morning before getting on the bus.
Wow.
And unfortunately, he started giving more financial to our home. And so as a 5-year-old, I was already looking at, well, if I stop this, then how will my family eat tonight? And if I tell the one breadwinner that is in our home, I know he's going to murder this man and he's going to spend time in prison. And so, what's going to happen to the family? So, at that age of 5 years old, I was already contemplating. life decisions on their behalf. And so I learned to wear a mask,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And so I knew if I would show that I was in pain or that I was hurting, my family would dig deeper. What's going on with you? Why are you acting this way? And so I would mask how I felt. So
Wow.
that duck in the water literally came from 5 years old. I was pretty much a duck on water all my life. But that didn't stop me loving people or me trusting people or me letting people in. Eventually we did move away the next year. And so I was able to have a fresh start and not deal with this family friend. But I have not told my family about this. This is something that I released in my memoir, so I'm sharing
Wow.
it with you guys. But I did prepare them that there are some stories that you guys may not be able to handle, but I am encouraging you to go ahead and read it before I release it, and you can have time to discuss with me.
Right.
So that's what I've done. But yeah, my childhood was not an easy childhood. In addition to that, the abuse continued. My grandmother eventually had a stroke.
Mm.
And so she was not able to take care of me further. And so my aunt, who was 5 or 6 years older than me, also started to physically abuse me as well. So at the age of 13, I ran away, moved in with my dad's mother. I've never met my dad's family. My mom and my dad family does not get along. My grandmother had started reaching out to the family about a year before I ran away and just started taking me to church on Sunday. So I developed a relationship with this family that I had never met. And so I was like, wow, they're wealthier than me. They have food in the pantry. Everyone gets along. There's no arguing. There's no fighting. There's no domestic violence in the home. So my grandmother, my paternal grandmother showed me a different lifestyle. And so I was so happy to just be around positive, uplifting people. And so over the course of the year, I got a chance to know my cousins and meet my uncles and develop a really good relationship with them. And so one Sunday I ran away after a fight with my aunt. I felt like at that time I was dealing with so much abuse on a consistent basis. I was tired of fighting. And
Mhm.
so either me or her at this moment. And so I had grabbed a knife. I was going to stab her.
Wow.
And I walked past the mirror in the bathroom and saw the look on my face and the deranged look in my eyes.
Wow.
And so I dropped my knife. I ran out the door and I just kept running. I ran all the way to a phone booth and did a collect call for my grandmother and had told her, I said, grandmother, I can't live here anymore. I've been hiding the abuse from you guys for this last year and I can't take it. And so she says, wait right there. I'll come pick you up. And she showed up about 25 minutes later
Mhm.
and took me with whatever I had on my back. And all the tears came out in that car ride on the way to her house. And she said, you'll never go back there again. I can promise you that. And I did it. She took guardianship over me and I lived with her until I got married at 23.
Wow.
But with my grandmother, she believed in serving others, helping others. And so she showed me unconditional love because I was so used to conditional love or love that was painful. And so it took a minute to get adjusted to that love that she gave, but it was never ending. No matter how many mistakes I made, no matter what I did wrong, she showed up, and I watched how she was with everyone in the community. She would cook, she would feed, she would do laundry, she would sew buttons on clothes, she would open up her house to have people come in, and so she taught me how to show love to others, and that's where I developed that passion of helping and serving because my grandmother was a devoted Christian woman. She would go in there and pray and speak in tongues and and then would say, okay, we're going to church and we're going to bake a cake and have an ice cream party for everyone. So I taught just loving people and showing people how much you appreciate them through her. And that's what developed my passion.
Wow.
of serving others. Yeah.
That
That was
is
a
a,
long answer, sorry.
listen, no, that is a, first of all, again, for the ability for someone to see, hear themselves through these podcasts so that it gives them just enough to make that next step. That's the purpose. And so just the pure embodiment of your transparency, um, I'm forever gracious about that, and the whole aspect of taking something that is so hurtful, dark, negative, whatever it or could be looked at in one way, and changing that around. Um, for the good of someone else and the good of yourself. And so being able to do that and show up how you do is monumental for you, your family, all of those that you lives that you impact. And then now being able to speak that out loud. And I'm excited about the fact that I just got some insights of your memoir. And so that is amazing. But it's and I keep hearing go frustrated. Like,
Mhm.
even when you said you walked past the mirror and you saw the knife, like that scared you. So that is that afraid, but you left frustrated. Like the frustration of the situation was greater than your fear of what could be. And so you went, and so going frustrated. So if any hold those who are listening to this, like the fear is there, let that frustration be so much greater that you're willing to make that change. And I love when you said like earlier, like recognizing that the fear is there. God didn't give us that spirit, but it's there. Um, and kind of like, and I think I said this to you before we even started recording when you said like a slang word from our generation. I was like, can you still say that? And so I kind of think like, I think like when I say this, I'm like, this might be a different generation, but whatever. Like, like how back in the day you say, hi, hater. Like,
Yeah,
and so it's like, that's kind of like identifying the things that are there that is set up as roadblocks. Once you identify those, then they don't become roadblocks anymore, just become stepping stones. Like, I see you. Hi, hater. Matter of fact, I'm going to put you in the front row so that I
mhm,
see you, see me, see you. Isn't that what Merton said?
exactly.
So
Exactly.
I know you there. You know I there with a cat when you say, I know you're gonna be there, you know I'm gonna be there. And when I show up, I'm gonna
Exactly.
that I can do. And so hearing that like go frustrated,
Mhm,
and then this the success that you're having that birth out of that frustration from like how we talked about, like God gives you that divine agitation. These were things God knew what you were going to go through, what you've been through, and what you were going to need as going through
mhm,
there. And so your story that you tell, I used to tell my students and those that I coach, like your situation is never just for you, it's for
mhm.
someone else. And so I am
Right.
confident that your story that you shared here and the words that you have placed on the pages of your memoir is going to impact a life and hopefully more. But
Mhm.
my thought process is if it's just one, then that's enough.
Exactly.
And so I really thank you for that. Um, Going a little bit lighter for just a little bit.
Mhm,
But that space, I want, if you're listening or watching this, I would encourage you to pause and just sit in that space for a second, just kind of to digest that, because I don't want to bypass it into something lighter, but not stay hold of all of the things that were unpacked there, and being able to see past that. Um,
mhm,
but you shared in a pre-session about some things that were like where you didn't feel supported, and that had a whole aspect of areas where you weren't supported, and you had to kind of create your own stepping stone for that. So first I want to say, I know whenever I see you, I'm always like stylish. It's the sneakers or it's the jacket, it's the hair, it's the, and I'm just like, look at you. Like, and I know my state is always like, hey, look at you. Like it's a new hairstyle or it's a new something. And you're always showing up so vibrant. It's your smile, but you, what's the word? I'm complimented with whatever you may be wearing, whatever your earring is, whatever your hairstyle is. And so I know that you style your own hair.
yeah.
Your wardrobe choices is just like you put that together. That was like I saw that in the store. I didn't see it like that. Like that was nice. Um, but then you said something like where you're not feeling supported. Like in your past or in situations, people have told you to tone down. Like, what is that all
Yes,
about?
exactly. Or you're extra, or you're too much. And I'm like, I'm just enough, or I'm the right amount. I'm Goldilocks.
I love it. I love it.
I feel like a lot of my teenage life or going into my 20s, I was always afraid of being myself.
Mm.
I felt like I had to fit in or look like everyone else or do whatever's trending. And so this last 2 to 3 years, it's been my transition into who I want to be and who I want to show up as and just being me unapologetically. And so I decided to cut my hair. And see, I put designs in there,
Yeah.
change the color. I wanted to, I love art. I love art is my favorite. I love, love, love art. And I feel like for me, I want to be the best piece of art there is. And so I want to change my hair color. If I want to change it to blonde or rainbows or red right now, that's what I'm gonna do. I was told as a child, you're never supposed to cut your hair. You're supposed to let it grow out. I decided to cut my hair 3 years ago. And I haven't grown it back yet, and I don't actually intend to. It's very liberating to have my hair short. It's also very liberating to change it up as much as I want to. I do have tattoos as well, so I got into that. As you can see, my
Wow.
sleeve here. Um, I have piercings, and so my body's a temple, but I like a decorated temple.
Wow.
So there's
I love that.
colors where you see there's different type of earrings. When I style my clothes, I like to buy pieces that I feel speak to me, just like art would when you go into a gallery. So I buy pieces that I feel speaks to me, and so I pair it up with something else. And so I like loud, bold colors, and typically that's what I do.
I love that. I think I was speaking with somebody this week or maybe last week, and it lends itself to this. They were like, when you're engaging with someone, it's an experience. Like you're allowing someone to experience you. And I
Yes,
think that
yes, yes.
in your talk, of your body being a decorated temple, that's someone's getting the opportunity to experience you, and so you want to give them the best experience. I
Mhm.
remember when I was in the classroom. And I would every time I remember standing outside of the door as you're greeting the kids coming in and watching the hall and everything. And I don't know if whoever's listened to this or if you even remember the show. Remember Jim and the holograms, the cartoon with the Barbie doll, and she was a Barbie doll and she had her hologram group, singing group. And when she would go on stage, she would do her earring and she would go, Showtime, Synergy. And that's when she would change into Jim, truly outrageous, and the holograms. And so I would say, like, whenever I was standing at my door with my students, and whenever they were ready to cut, whenever we were ready to do class, I would be like, Showtime Synergy and go in because in my mind it was a show. I was up for a Grammy and they were going to get the best experience of this show. I had a script, I had everything outlined, and the audience was going to be engaging and they were going to leave there riveted. Like this was the best experience of my life. And so I love that you have taken on yourself as an experience of a lifetime. When you engage with me, you're going to get the best experience and it's going to be true and authentic, and you're gonna leave with like, and I love that, and I think about like when you said like extra, that really sticks with me because I there was a time in my life where I was telling my daughter she was being extra, not like the way she dressed and the way things like she just her behavior, like some stuff, and I was like, you're just being so extra, and I remember God spoke to me and was like, stop saying extra like it's a bad thing. Like,
Right,
and it was
right.
during the time we were doing the Immeasurably More study with Holly.
Mm,
And it was like, you want immeasurably more. That's
mhm,
extra. You want extra time, extra
mhm.
money, extra. So stop telling her she's extra like it's a negative.
Right,
And
right.
that changed my perspective altogether with the word extra. Like, extra's not bad. Like, be extra. Yeah, this is you. This is who you are. And so I really celebrate you and really exemplifying that for those that are listening and those that get the opportunity to experience you, and saying like extra is good. This be you, be all of you. And that's,
Yes.
and like, if that means giving a little bit more so that you can be you, then be that extra. I love it. I just,
Exactly, exactly. And I don't believe it's extra if it's actually genuine and it's you, it's your personality. My personality is very vibrant. I'm a very layered person. Either we're gonna laugh, we're gonna cry, we're gonna open up and talk about some stuff. People just kind of I won't say attract to me maybe. And so maybe I don't know because I'm very transparent and I talk about anything in my life as I am here, it feels like it gives them a safety
yeah,
blanket or a safety net to also open up. And so I've met individuals in the airport, the seat next to me,
yeah.
in the grocery store. We'll end up having, we'll start a conversation over, oh my goodness, I like your jacket, or oh my goodness, you got grapes. What kind of grapes are those? And we'll turn into like this long conversation. And
Yeah.
so I have friends that I have to label in my phone, Charles from the airplane,
Here's Cedar.
Crystal from Trader Joe's. But we exchange phone numbers and we catch up or we talk. And so I realized that when I started this healing journey of just removing the mask that I felt I've worn all of my life, I became maybe vibrant. I don't know if that's the right word, but maybe my light that I've been darkening or dimming is finally beaming through. And so I actually named my business A Beacon of Light.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I believe that the light that I have within myself, I want that to shine out throughout me in my clothing, in my hair, in my tattoos, and just the way I care or speak to people. I want that light to show. And it may attract darkness sometimes, but that's okay, because I can handle darkness. I feel like I'm equipped now to handle the darkness that comes to me. And so I love that I'm finally at a space where I'm comfortable to be in my own skin and not feel like I have to hide.
Yeah, actually love that. Like when you have experienced something, then thinking out loud. I was listening to Sarah Jakes this morning, and she said, um, I'm a basically the same thing. Like I'm equipped for this because sometimes when you're going through something, is it necessarily going through something dark or is it preparation?
Ooh,
So when
that's good.
you're in it to be able to do the thing. Like because now when it comes, it's like, oh, that was training. Ha, I got
Yes.
that. I got that. So hearing like your story, like, yeah, that was it wasn't fun. It wasn't like then when you think of like, I mean, I don't even know if I can if I'm qualified to make this analogy because in no way, shape, or form have I been through boot camp. No way, shape, or form do I ever think about like the closest I've been to boot camp was just this past Monday. We had to play that game at leaders meeting and I was out of breath. But that wasn't fun, I'm sure, for those who have to go through boot camp and do all that physical training and all of that. But it's purposeful because when it's needed, now you're like, I can run, I can jump, I can step, I can climb, I can do all of the things that I needed to do because I did that in camp. I did that in training. And so, you know, that's I think those messages I kind of want to stamp those as we go through so that people will be able to pick up on that point and it's not something that's just listened to and bypass. Like pause that for a second, regurgitate on that, listen to that, hear that, see yourself in that, hear yourself in that, and let that be your fuel to make
Mhm,
that next step. See your frustration through that.
mhm,
Identify with that fear so that you know that that fear is just that. It's just that
mhm,
hater sitting in the front row
mhm,
looking at you, rolling their eyes, sucking their
mhm,
teeth. But
mhm,
that rolling of the eyes, that sucking of the teeth doesn't stop
mhm,
you from doing the thing that you need to do. Um, as we start to kind of end in our conversation, it's there's so much that I want to talk about. Um, What
How
would
much
be
time do we have? Because I have time.
I know, I know, I know. But there's things that I want you to be able to leave with the people who are listening.
Mhm.
And again, the whole aspect of this is nurturing leaders. And for me, you'll hear me say this continuously throughout anything that I'm posting or podcasting or leading through is a leader is anybody. If you woke up this morning, you're a leader because you had to guide and navigate yourself and make decisions. And so if there's things that you want that we didn't talk about, or you want to kind of unpack more, or you want to stamp it for the leaders listening, what would be some things that you want to kind of reflect on, or pieces of nuggets that you want to leave so that we can begin to climb or claw away at creating spaces that nurture individuals so that they can have lasting success?
Definitely the fear part. That for me, that was the major uh thing that could have been a blockage for me. The other is the feeling of inadequacy,
Mm,
not feeling like you have enough or are enough. And then, of course, shifting your perspective
mm,
from that scarcity mindset to abundance. And scarcity, of course, is believing that you don't have enough resources or the right resources, to abundance of feeling like or believing that you have everything you need to do exactly what you're going to do or called to do. And so for me, those stick out the most because those are the conversations that I have within myself, as well as these are the conversations that I have with God. And so God has been very resourceful in the way that He has provided for me. God has put the right amount of people in my path to help me become successful. And I have met the people on my team in the most awkward of places. In fact, I've learned to not judge a book by its cover, because for someone that looks like they may have had a really rough life, um, God would say, you should talk to that person, or I would feel that urge to speak to that person. So definitely not judging a book by its cover. Be willing to partner with others in the community, because you can't do this work by yourself.
mhm,
God has called us to fellowship with others. And so I believe through the partnerships that I have, if I'm lacking in one area, I know exactly who to go to that has that expertise or that has that experience that can help me. So I develop a team of what I call my village people.
mhm.
Um, One of my really good friends calls herself a what does she call herself? Gangster Christian. And she says, I will bust the cap in the devil. And she does. So she will pray with you. And then if you tell her something, she will be like, oh no, this is what we're about to do. Her name is Danielle. And so she has helped me get into so many rooms that I never could even imagine I
Mhm,
would be into, just because of her experience and who she knows in the community. And so a lot of my partnerships with employment, a lot of my partnerships with helping me get jobs for the individuals moving in, it's through her. One person has opened the door for me in so many ways. She now does case management for the individuals in my home. So God sent her to me, and
mhm.
through her, my businesses have grown, and she supports me 100%. It doesn't matter what time of day I call her. The CEO of Vanderburg House, he is my business mentor and friend. And
Wow.
so we talk on the phone. That's who I went to Canada with to celebrate his birthday. And so my village people are people that I've met along the way. There are gems that have been aligned in my path to work with me, and they accept me day one with open arms. How can I
Yeah,
help you? How can I support you? I know what to do. I will help lead you. And through them, it's where I've been successful.
yeah.
The downside to this is I did start this married. Um, and I'm no longer married. We are divorced as of January. Um, just a quick bit of that story is I noticed that my marriage started getting on the rocks within that first year of me opening. He didn't like the fact that I had become an entrepreneur. He also felt like he was competing with me now because of the financial increase for the family. And so he gave me an ultimatum of selling your business or choosing your marriage. And so I felt in my heart of hearts that God had called me to do this type of work. And unfortunately, he can't go with me on this journey. And so I tried with everything that I could to save our marriage, but it ended, unfortunately. We're not on speaking terms, but we're at least cordial for the kids. So when I had walked into church and God said, I have souls connected to this project. If God had showed me everything that would happen within this period,
Yeah.
I probably would have said, no, Lord,
No.
like not
Yeah.
me, choose somebody else.
Get somebody else, God.
Get somebody else to do it.
Wait, hold on. Let me go back and tell you all the things I can't do. I'm not sure if you know that I don't. Hey, well, listen.
But
That
he
is,
has provided. Jehovah Jireh.
yeah.
I hold on to that. And so trust and believe that God will provide everything that you need that you don't already have. He will equip you 100%. And so that is what I take from me. I also hold on to whom much is given, much is required.
Mhm.
And so I pray constantly, God, thank you for increasing my territory. God, can you please to make sure to increase my capacity to handle the increase of territory?
Yeah.
So grounding myself daily in God's word, worship, that is what keeps me grounded day by day, sometimes minute by minute.
No, for
And
sure.
so this field is heavy. We're dealing with lives here, and sometimes I'm making life or death decisions for individuals. And so I have to take myself out of the equation and say, God, what do you want me to do? Because I have no idea. So my relationship with God is what has kept me grounded the most, in addition to the team of support that I have for me personally, as well as for my business.
Yeah. I heard so much in that I want to make sure that, and it all was great. It all was so impactful and so powerful. And my brain works where I start to pull out key points because I'm a teacher, right? So I'm like, let me pull out these key points that I want to make sure in case you didn't get this. I want to pull out 3 bullet points. And I'm like, sometimes I'll be writing notes and I'm like, Lord, you have me write this like I'm about to preach this. Hold on a minute. But the 3 things that I heard from that is shift your perspective, because that is something that's why the podcast even started in season 1. It was taking something and how do we shift our perspective, like the Apostle Paul said, to see a greater picture. So shifting your perspective. And when you shift your perspective, you can see better what you have. And so when I think about those things, when you said in the very beginning, you started the business with no money. But that didn't stop you because you shifted your perspective. You were able to see what you had. You scrolled on their website. You were able to use your resources of investigation and research. You found a number, so then that gave you something else. And now you had that. A relationship equity, you had that, and you built on that. But then also, when you shift your perspective, you are able to see what you have, and sometimes what you have. And when you figure out what you have, then you have to develop a sense of understanding of support, using those who are able to help with this vision and this mission that you have. Sometimes it's not the financial equity, it's those who are there. Like you said, your friend Danielle has been able to get you in rooms that you had not been able to get in. It's because of her connections and what she has. And so you build on that. And I think sometimes, and I just was talking with someone else and did another talk, sometimes we look at support as a crutch and an inability or a weakness. And so we don't use it. Or sometimes you think, well, I can do all the things because I know how to do this and I know how to do that. But then we forget that once you're taking on so much, then something's not being done well.
Exactly.
And so when you're able to say, like, I always use the analogy, like if somebody is painting your house, but they can do floors, no, I'm gonna need you to focus on painting the house because I need you to do that. I'm gonna get somebody to
Exactly.
do these floors because I need them to do that well.
Exactly.
Just on them floors, Focus on
Exactly.
the why. What did Martin say? Your job is to check coats. Check them. Like,
Exactly. And you get more work done
yeah,
faster
yeah,
with a team. You cannot put the load on all one person because that will burn them out. So you have to equally distribute the weight.
yeah,
And when I've shifted my mindset from just me doing all the work to allowing a team to help me and trust that they can do the work that I give them to do, I'm more peaceful.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not as stressed or frustrated or feeling like I'm burnt out or overwhelmed. I'm able to get a lot of work done because of my team of support.
I love that. And it all boils back to shifting your perspective. Sometimes you have to stop, step back, and look.
Mhm,
You can't
mhm,
see it when you're in it. You got to stop, step back,
absolutely,
and look. And so I
absolutely.
do love that. And because this is all about supporting to nurture others and those others being leaders for lasting success, I want to just kind of dive into, how the listeners can support you. What are, some of the things that you got going on, where we can show up in that space, support, whether that's a like, a love, a share, a be there, a buy a ticket. Tell us what you got going on.
So I constantly am accepting donations. Donations. I have one women's house. I'm working on the fifth sober house. So I will be opening the fifth sober house at the end of April, and that will be in Gastonia. And
Mhm,
so a lot of times the individuals that are coming into our home, they are coming from being unhoused.
mhm.
So they don't have clothing or food. So I'm always accepting donations for clothing for women, clothing for men, toiletries, food. That's on a consistent acceptance basis. I love, 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 love all the partnerships that we have. But as I'm increasing, my homes are really large. And so 25, sometimes 30 people are moving in within the period of a month or 2 months. And so they need those things to kind of start them on their path. I rarely ask for monetary just because I believe that it can go towards something else. So I always say, don't give money, give time, or give something that you no longer want. It can be treasure to someone else. Um, and so my email is srutherford@vanderbrookhouse.com. Please email me. I love to partner with new agencies that are offering employment. That is also something that the individuals need when they're coming into the home. I do allow them 2 weeks free of no rent. I automatically waive it. And so I'm constantly working with them to help them find a job within that first 2 weeks. So by the third week, they're able to pay. Of course, resident sponsorship is always welcomed, just to give that individual some time to get their first paycheck going. So you can always connect with me and select a resident that you would like to help. But those are the ways that I love to receive help for the individuals in my homes.
That's awesome. And so for individuals who may want to donate like items and toiletries and things of that nature, would they email you or would they go to your website?
Yes.
Would they do that?
Yes, so they can go to www.vanderburghouse.com and select Charlotte. You'll see my wonderful face, and you'll see the houses as well as the addresses. You can show up to any of those houses and just drop off items on the porch. You can let someone in the house know that, hey, I'm just dropping off donations. That's absolutely fine. You can email me and set up a time. That's fine as well. If you would like to have a sit down and meet with me or just say, hey, my agency offers this. Can you come speak here? I'm totally open to that. So email and website is the best way to connect with me.
Awesome. And do you have any Instagram handles or anything like that where people can follow some of the work that you're doing? Or are you not?
So I am on all social media platforms under a Beacon of Light Recovery LLC. And you can just Google that name and Instagram will pop up, LinkedIn will pop up, Facebook will pop up, website will pop up, Google will pop up. You can get to me with that. Or
Awesome.
just type
Awesome.
in Shaundrika Rutherford. I'm sure you'll see my face.
That is amazing. All of those links and contact information will be in the comments if you're looking to connect and support with such an amazing work and an amazing passion fueled by an amazing woman. And so make sure that you reach out if this is something that you're passionate for and God has given you the divine agitation, or you just have a passion of wanting to help in this space, in this area. But Shaundrika, this was a time of my life here. I would have chosen nothing better to do than to be in your space and experience you during this time and having this conversation. So thank you so much for just pouring into me right now. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tawana, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Darling, I will come back for part 2 if you would like to. I am always down for anything that you have. I will clear my schedule for
Aw,
you as well.
thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.